in Nigeria if they can create that level playing field that we have to very much ask for.
Hello, great people. The US government, headed by President Donald Trump, has issued another stern warning to the Bola Tinubu-led Nigerian government. The US government is raising concerns about the apparent inaction and the alleged complicity of the Nigerian government in tackling insecurity, coming at a time that the Tinubu administration is marking its midterm and scoring itself high in the area of tackling insecurity, revamping the economy. What is the implication of this remark on the apparent re-election campaign of Bola Tinubu in 2027? What are the local implications and what are the international implications? On this episode with your short blog, Dr. Omosoladeji, will be dissecting the issues. I will be revealing to you the area of concerns of the American government, and I'll be reading some headlines for you as regards the insecurity and other social vices that the US government is complaining about. Then I would also be reading the US statement to you. Then after that, we'll be addressing the areas of concerns of the United States, because the United States is condemning the persistent wave of violence, mainly in 4 states, which is Imo State, Bonu State, Benue State, and Plateau State. And they are not taking it lightly with President Bola Tinubu. They are also giving President Bola Tinubu a mandate that you need to do this and do this as far as possible. What is the mandate that the US government is giving to President Bola Tinubu? You will get to know this and a whole lot more on this episode with your short blog, Dr. Omosoladeji. First, I think the safe place to start is for me to read some headlines to you so that you would be well informed about the concerns of the US government. Let's take some headlines. It says, Plateau, killing of 51 people is an inexcusable security failure. That is according to Amnesty International. Now, imagine this headline. It's saying that 51 people were killed in Plateau State, and based on the circumstance of the killing, definitely it was an inexcusable security failure on the part of the Nigerian government. Now, let's take another headline. It says that data shows 614,937 victims killed in Nigeria from insecurity in 1 year. Yes, you heard me correctly. Data shows 614,937, that is approximately 615,000 victims were killed from insecurity in 1 year. That is, and there's a survey which shows that National Bureau of Statistics says deaths recorded from May 2023 to April 2024. So that means that this killing, it shows that it happened during the administration of Bola Tinubu. Bola Tinubu became the president of Nigeria on May 29, 2023. And look at what it is being said that 614,937 persons were killed. Now, these are the concerns of the US government. Let us take one more headline or two. Another one here says 10,217 killed, 672 villages sacked in 2 years of Tinubu's government. Again, 10,217 killed, 672 villages sacked in 2 years of Tinubu government. That is according to Amnesty International. So if you look at it, you will see that all these things that are happening, and don't forget that these deaths that are recorded, some of the deaths that are happening, some of the casualties will go unrecorded. So if you want to factor in the real figures, which is, I think only God will know that, and the real figure, definitely it will be more than those in the headlines that I'm reading to you now. What is the US government? What is the US government now saying? Now, I read you a statement released by the US mission in Nigeria, and according to their X handle, they say that the United States Embassy in Nigeria is deeply saddened by and condemns recent attacks of violence in Borno, in Imo, and most recently in Benue and Plateau. The ongoing threats faced by communities and community leaders in Nigeria are deeply troubling. We extend our heartfelt condolences to all those affected by this senseless act. We look to Nigerian authorities to conduct thorough investigations to hold those responsible accountable. The United States stands with Nigeria in its effort to promote peace, security, and respect for human rights across the country. You see, that last that last sentence is the usual diplomatic sentence. But if you look at that particular old statement by the United States, it says that we look to Nigerian authorities, and that is the mandate, to conduct thorough investigation and hold those responsible accountable. And that is the statement released by the U.S. government. And this is not the first time that the U.S. government have been warning Nigeria. You will recall that there was a recent Supreme Court judgment whereby a farmer who was attacked by an elder in his farm, and in the process of the attack, the farmer was able to overpower the elder and he stabbed the elder to death. And the Supreme Court issued a death sentence to that particular farmer, and the U.S. government is against that. You would also recall that the Catholic bishop made some presentation in the U.S. Congress, and the U.S. Congress gave the government of President Donald Trump an order that the go-ahead, rather, that they should give a warning to Nigeria, and if possible, they should impose crippling sanctions on Nigeria. So I don't know why the U.S. government have been kind of like foot dragging, but then this warning, if you are the type that follow politics and happenings in the polity, particularly international relations and communication between Nigeria and United States, you will know that this is not the first time, this is not the second time, this is perhaps not the third time that the U.S. government has been issuing warning to the Tinubu administration. So if you hear tomorrow, for some people that that don't follow the news, if you hear tomorrow that the U.S. government sanctioned Nigeria or Bola Tinubu, some of you will politicize it, some of you will criticize the U.S. government, and these are some of the reasons. You can see the headline that I just read to you. Now, let us go to the issues in the U.S. area of concern. The U.S. mentioned Bonu State, Imo State, Benue State, and Plateau State. What are the issues that the U.S. is complaining about in this particular in their statement? There will be a longer communication, but I can only read that short one to you. Now, the U.S. government complained about Bonu State. What are they complaining about in Bonu State? The U.S. government is complaining about Boko Haram, ISIS, ISWAP, the resurrection and the fast spreading of terrorism attack in Bonu State. The U.S. government is saying that these attacks are becoming one too many, and the perpetrators of this attack seem to be doing it and getting away with it, that the Nigerian government should act as fast as possible. And don't forget that the U.S. government have some business interest in Nigeria. So definitely the spread of terrorism is not one thing that the U.S. government usually tolerate. And you will recall that anything that has to do with terrorism definitely doesn't sit well with the U.S. government. So the U.S. government is mandating Bola Tinubu that within the earliest possible time, get those that are behind Boko Haram, get those that are behind ISIS, get those that are behind ISWAP and their incessant attacks, and bring them to justice. Now, the U.S. government, as regards Imo State, this is where it gets interesting. The U.S. government is complaining about separatist movement and anti-criminal gangs. In Imo State, they are saying that, it seems that the separatist movement, that is the pro-Biafra agitation, seem to have more stronghold in Imo State, and they are complaining about the prevalence of armed criminal gangs, which is like kidnapping, armed robbery, and other social vices. Now, in Benue State, the U.S. government is complaining about incessant herdsmen attack on agrarian communities. The U.S. government is saying that why is it that herdsmen usually kind of like attack the agrarian community, which is the farming community in Benue State, and at the end of the day, nothing seems to happen. So much so that the people of Benue State, some of them are in IDP camps. So the U.S. government is condemning the Bola Tinubu government that no, government should have the monopoly of violence, and if you are doing something about the incessant attack on the agrarian community by herdsmen in Benue State, definitely the attack wouldn't be occurring frequently. Now, to Plateau State, the U.S. government is condemning ethno-religious killings and farmers' herders crisis. The U.S. government is saying that the issues in Plateau State, it has ethno-religious coloration, and the farmer herders clashes similar to that of Benue State should be addressed. Now, based on the complaining, mainly these four states, what is the U.S. government mandating Bola Tinubu? As read in that statement, it is mandating Bola Tinubu on two things. One, conduct thorough investigation. Two, bring the perpetrators to justice. If Bola Tinubu fail to act in that regard, what is the consequence? The consequence is that at the end of the day, the US government may take some decisions on Bola Tinubu and his government. You will recall that the Trump administration is largely a pro-Christian government, in the sense that the vice president, J.D. Vance, is a Catholic, and anything that happens to Catholic in Nigeria, the US vice president, J.D. Vance, is always concerned. So if the Bola Tinubu administration fail to bring the perpetrators to book, the US government will reason that then it seems that this administration is complicit. And if the government of the United States think that the administration is complicit, then they will now be thinking from ethnic and religious background, that why would the government be complicit? Is it because most of the elders or most of these attackers are Muslim, and the president and vice president are Muslim as well? Or is it from an ethnic perspective in terms of political gain, that okay, do you want the north to be destabilized so that you can have an easy win in 2027? Or is it that there's another ethnic dimensions to it? So the US government will begin to investigate that, and at the end of the day, what will this lead to? Crippling sanctions, different sanctions on the Tinubu government, and at the end of the day, the people that will be affected is the Nigerian people. Lest I forget, you may want to argue that what is the business of the US government? Well, the US government ordinarily should have no business with what is going on in Nigeria, being a sovereign country. But then, when Nigerian government goes to the World Bank, where the US government have strong influence, goes to IMF and approach some of these countries for loan, aids, and grants, definitely these countries will begin to interfere in your internal matters. And who can interfere for the Nigerian people if not a government like the United States? If you are PDP, if you speak, they will tell you to shut up. If you are Labour Party, they will tell you to go to hell. And the Nigerian people can no longer complain without being abused. But now that the US government is complaining, the Bola Tinubu will not dare tell the US government to shut up. So as much as it is not too logical for the United States to be interfering in the Nigerian affairs, definitely we must remember that the United States government also has some business interest in Nigeria, and they will be looking at it from the business perspective that if we don't interfere, if we don't raise an alarm, and if we don't have some communication with the Nigerian government, definitely if this thing escalates, it will affect our business interests. And also on the aspect of diplomatic ties, definitely if you want to be a pally to the US government, you must not act in contrary to the values of the US government. Same also for Nigeria. Any country that wants to be our friend must not act against the values of the Nigerian government. It's been an interesting time with you on this episode of Politics with Dr. Omosoladeji. Subscribe, turn on your notification button, catch up with my past videos. See you in my next video. I love you all sincerely.